All right, we'll get started. Welcome everyone to tonight's chapter chat. I know it says November, it's December 1st. It's okay, time flies. So, but now let me go to the next slide. Just to go over this, we'll introduce the concept of chapter chats for anyone who has not joined one before, and then we'll dive into details of the conference and planning. I just want to remind everyone that we have a chapter leaders channel in our ESW Global Slack, and I highly recommend joining. It's a great place to hear about updates, what's going on from ESW HQ, as well as to know who other chapter leaders are and to be able to ask questions and communicate. You guys are your own best resources because these are the people who are in your position, who are struggling with the same types of things, who are planning the same types of things, doing similar projects. And so it's important to make sure that you are connected into that network and you know that you can reach out when needed. I also want to introduce you to our chapter relations team. Hopefully at this point in the semester, you know who your CRC is and you have been in contact with them. But it's important to also know the other faces that you might see who might answer your questions and names as well. So if you get communications from any of these people or you want to reach out about anything, we're all here to help you guys have the best semester and the best year that you can have. And I want to welcome Alyssa to our call. Alyssa is the head of our events department and has been working very hard with the conference team to make sure that we have the best digital ESWCon that we can. And she's going to help share details and answer questions this evening as well. So the whole point of these is to dive in to specific topics and for us to share information, but really to open it up for discussion and to make sure that any questions you have or any things that you want to share, suggestions, all of those can be answered. And so please participate. These calls are always best when you guys are a part of them. If you missed any of our previous chapter chats, you can find them on our ESW Events YouTube channel and make sure that you check your email and social media for updates on when our next chapter chats will be, because we cover lots of interesting topics that I think will be relevant and helpful to anyone in this room. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Alyssa, who will dive into the details of ESWCon21.
Cool. Thank you, Sarah. All right. So as everybody knows, we are in an international pandemic, which means that this year we're doing things a little bit differently. So this year we will be doing a fully digital conference, but we're actually really excited about this because it opens kind of a lot of different avenues that we can go down that we haven't been able to do before. So even though I know you're probably sick of everything kind of moving online and you're like, they're just kind of pandering to make us excited about going online. We actually are really excited about this because we have a lot of really cool ideas. And the other cool thing is that because we're online, well, one, we're, not having people fly or use different methods of transportation that are not particularly good for the environment. But we're also expecting a higher attendance because it's a much more accessible conference. And we're also expecting an attendance with kind of a more international presence because we are going to have a lot of content spread throughout the entire event. And a lot of that content is going to be recorded and it's going to be accessible throughout that entire weekend. So we're really excited. We think this is actually going to be our biggest conference yet. And we are projecting pretty high numbers at the moment. So we will be starting on April 22nd, which is Earth Day. And we will be going through that Saturday in 2021, which is crazy to think about. We will include 3 full days of workshops, networking, and project showcases. So very similar to conference experiences that you've had before, if you were fortunate enough to go to a conference. we'll be having tours, so digital tours of the campus of different University of Buffalo projects, because obviously we want to highlight the UB students and everything that their chapter has done, and they've done some really cool stuff. So we want to make sure that they are highlighted, that we're still able to see their campus, see what they've been doing, see their city, and we have a lot of fun ideas for that. We're also hoping to introduce student-run or chapter-run workshops. So I think, one of the people in my team, a while ago, we surveyed a bunch of students, a bunch of chapters, just to kind of gauge interest on this. And she has been reaching out to people who said that they were interested in doing something like this. So, we're just looking to see if a chapter or a student is interested in what that experience looks like, how to run a session or run a workshop, whether it's something a little more hands-on or discussion focused. We have kind of pre-built workshops for you if it's something you're interested in, but you don't kind of have an idea of what you want to do. So if you haven't heard from her, if this is something you're interested in, something that your chapter is interested in, please reach out to me, because we would love to make that a bigger part of the conference. We are planning on more project showcases. We still do want to have, even though we're not printing posters, we still do want to have that more interactive experience. And luckily, one cool thing that has kind of come out of this pandemic is a lot of really interactive online resources. So there actually are resources now that, involve like a digital project room, a digital poster room. You can kind of walk amongst all these different posters. So, we're planning on still having all of these elements at the conference. It's just kind of going to be in a different format. So we are working on the schedule. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Does anyone have like overarching questions before I move on? Cool. All right, finances. So student tickets this year are $40, which we think is pretty dang cheap. So, that is about half of what they usually cost. And keep in mind that when you're paying for a ticket to come to the conference, you're paying for that logistical piece, you're paying, a lot of it is for catering, you're paying for all of these different pieces. Here, your ticket, the entire ticket is going towards the cost of the digital platform, and the cost it takes to run that digital platform. So, we're not like increasing the price to make a profit off of this conference. All of these prices are going straight back to conference costs. And as Sarah was circling, we are having a special discount right now. We would love to see our conference attendance kind of get a better idea of attendance. So we are offering a half-off discount, $20 off by the end of 2020. I did send out an email about that with the coupon code in there. If you are interested in registering, or if your chapter is interested in registering, I'm actually not 100% sure what I made the discount out to be. I believe it's ESWCon 2020, but let me double check on that while we are talking. Okay, ESWCon 2020 discount. So I can actually put that in the chat in case nobody is not getting those emails. All right, so that's a promo that we're running now until the end of the year. We are not having early bird versus regular pricing this year. So the student price of a ticket is going to be $40 throughout the entirety of the event. We're going to close registration about a week before the event. We don't really have to worry about those catering, the catering numbers and having updated numbers on things like that. So we don't have as many restrictions this year as to when we have to close things and, increasing pricing and things like that. So that's really cool. We may have discounts and promotions kind of sprinkled throughout the remainder of the 5 months before the event. So, keep an eye out for that. Follow us on social media. Make sure you're signed up to receive our emails. You'll kind of get more details about that as we go. It is important to create a budget so you can get a rough estimate of total chapter costs. Luckily, you do not have to worry about transportation, about booking flights, about meals. You don't have to worry about any of that this year. So it's really just how many people are planning to attend. Are you planning on covering a certain number of your members of their total costs? So that's pretty much it this year. determine all sources of funding. So, as usual, we may have some ESW grants. I know a few chapters have already gotten in contact with me about doing like school funding or department funding. We've had a lot of schools do fundraisers in the past where they've had sponsors or external grants. So there are a lot of different ways you can get that funding. Again, I would definitely recommend trying to register by the end of the year since tickets are so cheap right now. But luckily, January 1st, we think $40 is still pretty inexpensive compared to a lot of other conferences. It can be helpful to use, a more detailed spreadsheet just to kind of keep track of the amount of people who are coming and what you're covering. And obviously, the earlier you plan, the easier and the better that it will be. So we just recommend that this is a conversation you start to have with your chapters and start that process sooner rather than later. Questions about finances, budgeting, money? Everyone's favorite topic of conversation.
And of course, if you guys do have questions that you think of later, you can always ask at the end of this chapter chat. You can post them in the Slack. You can send questions to your CRCs. You can email Alyssa.
Yep.
Just because you don't have questions right now, if they come up as you start these discussions, we're here to answer those.
I get lots of emails, so go right ahead. I'm also on ESW Global Slack. You can find me there. So feel free to pop by there. For logistics, registration is open. You can register now. It's the same kind of process that you've experienced before. You buy a ticket, you answer some questions about yourself. We will have features kind of built into this website to identify what school you're from. I know we have a lot of ideas for different things we can play around with, and we have a lot of different room to play. So we're trying to collect as much information as we possibly can. But here's what you can expect. So we will be using a digital platform, and we're kind of looking at several different schedules that will be running concurrently. So this is, one schedule is kind of mainly focused on professional content. It will have different professional tracks, sessions that someone like me who's a working professional may be more interested in, as well as, we're looking into doing like some alumni mixers and maybe having some alumni related events. So that should be really fun. We will have a mixture of content. So we're going to have some live speakers. All of our keynotes will be live with live Q&A. We'll have some pre-recorded sessions with live Q&A, and then some sessions will be fully pre-recorded and there will be no live Q&A. It'll just be a digital video that you can sign into and watch online. So we're going to have a lot of mixture in terms of our breakout sessions. We will have different tracks as we've had in the past, and some of those tracks we're trying to see if we can offer different certifications. So if you take a certain amount of classes in this one specific track, maybe you can come out of it with a certification you can put on your resume. Who doesn't love that? We're also hoping to give opportunities to get out of the house, but to still stay engaged. So, since pretty much everyone is sitting in front of their computer all day, every day these days, I know that can be very tiring. Especially on your eyes. So we're trying to find ways where you can get outside but still stay engaged in the conference. And this will include a lot of like competitions through your phone. So, we're kind of calling these walk and talks, where basically you get outside, go for a walk, but you're listening to the ESW Sustainable podcast while you're walking. Maybe we'll have a nature challenge. We're talking about take a bag with you, like a tote bag, pick up as much garbage as you can see on the road, things like that. So we're trying to make it fun, make sure you're staying engaged and staying interactive within the conference throughout the entire weekend, even if you want to go outside and take a break. We're planning, digital scavenger hunts and ways that you can still stay socially engaged through your phone or through your computer. This will involve group discussions, like roundtable discussions that can either be centered around sessions that you were just in. We'll have roundtables that are, more focused around just general topics of conversation. We're talking about airing different documentaries throughout, which will also include a lot of Q&A and discussion. like I mentioned before, because this is a digital event, we're planning on a much larger attendance, which means you can engage with more people from around the country, maybe chapters that you didn't get a chance to engage with before because it was too expensive to attend the conference in person. So this is really going to be an opportunity to meet a lot of different kind of people from all over the world. We are still going to have a career fair or something very similar to that. And this will include not only other organizations and companies, but we're also planning to increase the amount of graduate sustainability programs. So we're hoping to invite a lot more colleges this year. So if anyone is interested in grad school, or if you have members interested in grad school, you know, they can expect to see those different organizations at the conference. And then finally, like I mentioned, you know, we're still going to have that element of either a poster session, design reviews. We want to make sure that whatever projects you're working on or whatever projects you're designing, that you're getting feedback, that you're being heard, that your projects are being seen and appreciated. So there will be room for all of those things and more. So we're very excited about this. We think there's a lot here. We have a ton of stuff planned. So I know that was a lot of information all at once. Does anyone have any questions about that?
I want to add that we will still have our chapter leadership summit as we have had in the past, and are actually looking at ways to expand it so that you have more time to get to know other chapter leaders and to brainstorm and discuss ways to make your chapters better.
And I guess one thing off of that, we're also, for those of you who maybe haven't thought about this before, we're trying to find more ways to engage your advisors, your chapter advisors. So, you know, if you have a chapter advisor who you want to be more involved, or maybe a chapter advisor who wants to be more involved but doesn't know how, we're really hoping to kind of make a deeper connection with them this year and to invite them to this digital event. So. That's it, guys.
Have you guys started planning yet? Or thinking about, you know, how many of your chapter members are interested in joining, whether or not this is something that you guys are funding or that your student members are funding themselves? I'm curious to hear kind of the conversations that you guys have already been having about the conference.
Or if you haven't been having conversations, that's okay too. But we'd love to have you there, and you should start having conversations.
Yeah, we haven't had any conversations yet. I know normally we only send a couple people, but we're not sure exactly how it's going to look since it's going to be online this year. We might be able to have more people.
Yeah, you can have as many people as you want. It's going to be great. Cool.
I would also recommend making sure you have a diverse group of people going, like different ages and stuff, just so that everyone, if you have more opportunity to send people, it's a great way to get younger members involved, and to keep them engaged. I think going to the conference, especially in the beginning of like your ESW like school career, can really make it an incentive to stay longer and to like continue the interest for your younger members, or your newer members, not necessarily younger.
Definitely. I went my sophomore year, and it really opened my mind to like what our chapter could be and different types of projects we could be working on, and was sort of what pushed me to be more involved in our board and our planning. And I loved it. So it's a great idea. Are there any things that you guys that were not mentioned that you're hoping to see at a digital conference?
I was so surprised at the extent that a digital conference could like be at. That was a large list.
Yeah, and it's only growing. I actually, it's becoming a problem because we have so many ideas that we're having to prioritize what to focus on because we can't do everything, right? But a lot of these platforms that they've created, just there's so much that they can do. You know, between not only session content, but also ways to keep people engaged, ways to keep things interactive. You know, we were talking to one company about a function they have just called like the coffee house. And it was just an open Zoom room that was open 24 hours every day throughout the entire conference. And people could just kind of filter in and out, like when they were bored, and see who was in there and maybe strike up a conversation and then go on to their next thing. And something like that, it's such a small idea, but it makes a big difference. And they actually found it very successful. You know, one of the conferences that they had hosted used it so much more than they expected, and it ended up being kind of one of the highlights of the event. So it's small things like that that really make a big difference. So we're trying really hard to find these little touches here and there that just make it a better experience. And, you know, some of this, I don't want to reveal too much, but some of this may include, you know, like scavenger hunts for prizes that will be mailed to you. Obviously, we don't want to mail everyone something because that's not very sustainable. But if we're only mailing to like 10 people, then that's not as bad, right? You know, we're still planning on partnering with Earth Hacks, so you can expect another sustainable hackathon that will be virtual. And we're actually hoping to make this hackathon something that can be something that can help the University of Buffalo. You know, we're looking at doing something more aimed for K through 12 education. So something that can really help them develop more programs. So, you know, we're really trying to make this a more practical conference where there will be a lot of action items that kind of come out of it. So it's not just going to be a sitting in front of my computer, clicking into a Zoom room and then clicking out. There's going to be a lot more stuff for you to do.
I have a just question. I mean, we're all like spend a lot of time in the digital space, but like, what are the things that you guys feel like are the most engaging stuff to do over the digital space? Like, have you found stuff through like classes or anything that like it is super engaging and does like not feel like a drain on yourself to be just listening? Because if you have suggestions for that, that's also super helpful, even just in discussion groups.
Absolutely.
I think anything that I'm interacting with my keyboard and mouse, like I'm thinking of almost like digital games that you can play together, things like that. Things that I'm able to put some kind of input. I mean, just talking too works, but everybody can do it all at the same time. If you're like, I use like jig boards, I think they're called, can do that. Things like that. I like that keeps me engaged. I'm not looking at my phone while I'm doing that.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, cool. Any other questions, concerns? Do your members have concerns? Your chapters have concerns about anything? Are people gonna go? Are we gonna see you there?
So much cheaper.
Thank you. I think
great.
so.
It's so much. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize how expensive a digital conference can be, even though you don't have that catering portion. The nicer digital platforms that you can use are actually pretty expensive. And even that being said, you know, the platform that we're working with is really pretty inexpensive comparatively, but has so much functionality to it. So, you know, there are platforms that have the same functionality that are about 10 times the cost of what we're using. So it's a pretty wide spectrum of what's available out there. We're very, very excited. I actually have my ESWCon meeting in about half an hour. We have a lot to talk about. So cool. Well, if anyone has any further questions, I did put my email in the chat. So, you know, like Sarah mentioned, feel free to reach out to your CRCs. If you want to reach out to me directly, feel free. I have put So online on our conference website, we do have our request for speaker abstracts up, and this is people who want to have like a breakout session at the conference. I am about to release our request for like posters or design review abstracts. So, you know, if that's something you're interested in, please feel free to just submit an abstract. You know, we do generally do like a screening, kind of just depends on what you're interested in. If you want to do more of like a presentation style, or if you want something more like a static poster. We're still kind of trying to figure out what that platform will look like, but feel free to put an abstract there anytime. We'll also probably send an email out about it, as well as, you know, some blasts on social media. So hopefully you don't forget that it's there. Cool.
Also, if you have members who you think would be good for that too, like please send
Yes.
it their way as well. Encourage
And
them.
don't feel like you can't host a breakout session, because we've had students host breakout sessions before and they were really well received and they were really awesome. So, you know, if that's something you want to do, absolutely go ahead and submit an abstract. We would love to see that.
Bully your friends too. It's fun.
Yes.
We love doing that.
Cool. Well, thanks, guys. This was fun. I hope to see you all in April.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Thank you so
Online.
much for joining and for sharing this information.
Absolutely.